Well, so far, there is no sign of retaliatory tariff from Japan yet. But we can imagine that if they want to, then which sector will be the big target here? It's U.S. agricultural exports. And why is that? It's simply because U.S. is so good at producing agricultural products, and we do maintain a trade surplus from ag exports. So we can easily imagine that, okay, if Japan one day they impose any retaliatory tariff on U.S. ag exports, then maybe wheat is a target here. That is the thing we are more need to concern about. And the second story here is, okay, China imports 6% of U.S. white wheat. If we look at the percentage, the number, 6% is small. However, maybe some of you may argue that if we look at the trade volume here, it's still a huge amount. Well, I agree with that. However, if we think about it, okay, even if it seems like we're losing the Chinese markets, then where should we sell those 6% of wheat? Or what will China do if they don't import wheat from US? Well, here, I would love to tell you some more story about wheat. However, I don't have enough numbers and evidence to say a certain thing about that. But we do learn an interesting story from soybean exports here. So I put this soybean story and I want to share with you. And we know that China was the biggest soybean importer of US soybean. And China imposed tariffs on soybean, then of course they will buy less US soybean. However, the Chinese consumers, they still have to eat. We love tofu, and when we cook, we use oil, and in China we actually use a lot of oil produced by soybean. And if that is the case, to satisfy the Chinese consumers, we still need to buy a lot of soybean. But now, because of the tariff, China will not buy a lot of US soybean, then where they get those soybean, right? And it turns out they actually buy a lot of soybean from Brazil now. So if we look at the chart here, before July in this year, that China imposed tariffs on US soybean, the Brazil soybean export to China is sort of stable. However, after the Chinese tariff on soybean, Brazil exports much more to China right now compared to the period before the tariff. And where they get their soybean? Well, we know Brazil is also a big exporter of soybean. However, to satisfy a huge demand in China, they probably need to buy soybean from US. What this story tells us is, okay, China now imposes tariffs on US soybean. I probably won't buy a lot of US soybean now. However, eventually, Chinese consumer will still get US soybean. but now it's not directly from US. We have a middleman here, which is Brazil. So this is the story we learned that, well, if it could happen in a soybean market, well, maybe it's too early to make this conclusion, but we need to keep an eye on that. Will it happen in the wheat market, right? So it's like, although we face this tariff on wheat, but we probably may sell our wheat to another country, or maybe we have more than one middleman, and eventually it still goes to China. That's possible, but we don't know it yet, right? And the third story is about the long-run impact of a trade tension or tariff. Well, we say that the trade tension, the loss from the trade tension will be temporary. It will not last for a long time. However, what we should concern more about the effects here is the long-run effect, because it could change the big picture of trade in the world market permanently. And mainly about two things. One is there could be a new player in the world market of world wheat market production. And the trade relationships among countries may change. And what we mean here is, if we look at wheat export countries, here are 6 main wheat export countries now. If we look at Russia, in the past 25 years, actually Russia exported very less at the beginning. But suddenly, if we look at their exports of wheat nowadays, Russia becomes the wheat king. And it exports more than US, right? So what we want to know is if Russia keep export a lot of wheat, then it could be a big competitor to the US wheat export. And also, if we look at that where we export our wheat, sorry, click it too fast. So if we look at where the US wheat goes, the major countries are in Asia. And compared to US and Russia, who is closer to this Asian country? It's of course Russia. So they have their advantage on wheat export to these Asian countries now, right? So this is the short run and the long run impact of trade tension or tariff here. And last thing is, we know that our government trying to compensate our farmers who suffer the loss from the trade tension, but look at the numbers here. I won't say it's big enough to cover all loss. So what we expect is that we know the trade tensions impact is just temporary, but it would be better that we don't have it at all, right?
But look at corn. Point that one out, Dr. Rita.
Oh,
1
the
cent
first
per bushel the U.S. is compensating. That's a nothing burger. It's just not there for any losses in that.
yeah, and for wheat, it's 14 cents per bushel. Is not large as well. And yeah, that's what I have for today. Thank you.